Welcome, everyone. Good evening. This is our fourth mental health presentation. We're excited to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about building resiliency and using building resiliency within your family dynamics and how to manage all of the different responsibilities and challenges that are occurring at this time. My name is Jessica Ogans. I'm the director of our OT, and mental health team. Mike Stromberg will be giving the presentation this evening. He's our mental health lead provider. Based on your previous feedback, we are incorporating more opportunities for group participation. So we encourage you to participate. Additionally, we will have a question and answer section at the end of the presentation. This presentation is being recorded and will be shared with the Ivymount community. Please keep yourselves muted throughout the session, except for discussion and question and answer sections. Feel free to enter questions or comments in the chat box throughout the presentation. And I will be entering a link for the feedback form in the chat. I will do that now, and I will also do it at the end of the session. Your feedback is really important to help us make sure that we're meeting your needs. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Michael Stromberg.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? Welcome. Glad you guys could make it. I think you guys have been to, all of you have been to kind of previous ones of these. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're trying, and on top of, we're going to, like Jess said, we're going to have more chances for discussion. But since it's a smaller group, feel free to stop me and ask me a question at any time. The point of these is to make sure you guys can get out of it what you can. So if you have questions, issues, concerns, things you want to discuss, go into more detail, please let me know. You can use the chat or really just kind of speak up, so feel free to do that tonight. So I think you guys know my bio by now. Been doing this for a little while, a little older than I look, but also a parent of two toddlers, struggling to get by. I feel like so. It's been definitely a bit of a roller coaster these past 8 months. And I always put in like an initial self-care and self-compassion skeptic. We're not gonna focus on self-care and self-compassion as much. I'm definitely gonna sprinkle that in, but that's just more so. I think some of this stuff I talk about, it didn't initially come easily to me. It's definitely something I've had to kind of work on and think about and apply it to my own life, both professionally and personally. So I think it's just having that kind of mindset that it's something to work at is important. So we're talking about family resilience. I'm going to get into the very exciting topic of family systems theory, but don't worry, it's going to be very, very brief. And we're going to talk about the impact of raising a child with autism or special needs, something, you guys are the experts on that topic, but we're going to get more into kind of what the research has shown is the impact. We're going to talk about factors that promote family resilience, some common issues that arise in family relationships, then putting it all together. So what, in terms of, this whole presentation, we're looking at the family unit as a system, and and it's a system where we interactive and reactive units, and we're looking at family, the interdependence of family members, what I have called it the circular conception of causality, and that's just a fancy way of saying instead of just A affecting B, A affects B, which in turn affects A. So what happens to A affects B, and B's reaction affects A, and that's kind of an ongoing, continuing cycle. And change in one family member, a change in one relationship can and often does affect the entire family and the functioning of the family. So with the family systems, we're focusing not just on the family as a unit, but also on relationships and interactions, emotional functioning, the family. And that's really the lens we are using to with this talk, and we're going to apply family resilience to that lens. So I know you guys are all well aware of the challenges inherent of raising a child with autism. I think there's, what research has shown, has documented, and this might not be a surprise to all of you, higher stress levels, higher incidence of depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues, negative impact on physical health. There's a higher financial burden, a higher rate of divorce. That's not necessarily definitive. Some studies have shown that, and some studies have shown an increased rate of emotional problems and depressive symptoms in siblings. So that's, that right there is kind of some of the challenges you can be looking at. On the other side, there's been there are reports of some more positive findings in terms of changes in perspective as a result of having a child with special needs or a disability, increased support within the family, increased sensitivity, stronger relationships, increased compassion, even in positive sibling relationships. Even with the that negative finding I just talked about, there oftentimes siblings do report at least somewhat of a positive relationship with the child with special needs. And some more good news: there are reports of stronger marriages, closeness between the mother and child. There's not a difference there just because the child has autism or special needs. And the bottom line is generally most families tend to adjust. That being said, the stressors are there, the challenges are there, and on top of that, we've added COVID. So it's COVID. It's an experience that's challenging for, I think, almost all families, whether you have a special needs child or not. But I think you add the special needs child and kind of what that entails, where you're asked to do more with less. And it kind of creates what I call a perfect storm. And we're going to use some of that storm analogy a little bit later. So it's a challenging time to say the least. And so that's where the family resilience comes in. And again, we're looking at this through the family system, and family resilience is withstanding and rebounding from adversity. It's about self-stabilization, self-organization, and how life challenges and crises can impact relationships. And again, research has shown that there are key processes, and that's what we're going to talk about for the remainder, or for most of the remainder of the time, are these key processes, general key processes that allow families to adapt in times of stress. And when we're talking about resilience and being able to come back from adversity, we're not just talking about bouncing back and, just like, pretending everything's okay. It's acknowledging that there is a struggle and things are happening that are difficult to encounter. And it's learning to struggle well. And I think, that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight. And it's really important to note what I'm talking about is, I think it's going to be really important for you to pick and choose and take different things and apply it to your own family. Everyone's family is different. Everyone's family has their unique strengths, and there's no one way, no one, prescription or way to achieve family resilience. So we're talking about this in kind of general terms, and I will go into some specific examples, but it's like for you, it's about picking and choosing what works for your family and going from there. So I said more good news. Now we have more and more good news. It's really important to step back and think about what you've already been able to accomplish. You're not starting from scratch. You and your family have already experienced a lot. Just having a special needs kid, you can think about pre-diagnosis, getting a diagnosis, what that was like afterwards, getting services, dealing with behavioral issues. The list could go on and on and on. Think about where you are now and kind of the perseverance and the resilience that it's taken to get here. And then with COVID, it's incredibly, to me, it's been 8 months, over 8 months of dealing with this, and I was going to say no end in sight. Maybe now there is maybe an end in sight. I don't know with the vaccine information, but it's here now, and it's going to be here for a little while longer at the very least. So it may be, you may be struggling. I think most people are struggling to some degree, but again, you know, we've been doing this for 8 months, and that's important to remember and consider and think about the strengths that and the positive qualities that you've used to get through these 8 months. So family resilience, we're talking about three main components, which I'll break down: family belief systems, structural organization patterns, communication, and problem solving. And some quotes and some important considerations. One quote from Elizabeth Edwards I liked: "She stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her away, she adjusted her sails." But so we're talking about the storm in the and we're not talking about major wholesale changes. We're talking about adjustments we need to make. So this whole presentation is about adjustments that can be made. And by the way, I really like metaphors, so I'm going to be using a lot of them. The storm and the adjusting the sails is just one of them. So yeah, I like metaphors. But also, resilience is not all or nothing. If you read the next quote, you know it's not like a all or nothing kind of thing. Some families are resilient in one area, less resilient in another. But it's something you can work at and something you can build toward. And again, that gets back to what I just said in terms of identifying the strengths that have already gotten you to where you are and just being able to build on those. So family belief systems, the first component. And I personally think this is one of the most important, if not the most important part of what I'm going to talk about in terms of family resilience. And it's about our beliefs. And I'm not talking about a religion or religious beliefs, although, you know, you can see the third bullet point, transcendence and spirituality are on there. So religious beliefs can be helpful in terms of working toward family resilience. But I'm talking more about beliefs in terms of how we how we respond and how we react to the adversity and how we, you know, make meaning of it. And that's critically important. And you know, looking at the picture, our beliefs are kind of the roots of the tree, and you know, our lives and our behavior really spring up from those beliefs. And being able to make meaning out of adversity, you know, identifying what's happening is from a family perspective as kind of a shared challenge, making it manageable, meaningful to tackle, is really important, because that's what's going to be allow you to tackle and confront problems and seek support when you need it. So it's, you know, positive outlooks on there. It's not about just, you know, smiling and pretending everything's okay, but it's, again, looking at it as a manageable problem, acknowledging the distress that's entailed, reducing blame and shame and guilt. Sorry if you hear any of my lovely children in the background. They're getting ready for bed, but it's you know, what you know, your beliefs is it's making meaning out of the situation, and which is going to help you from falling into kind of a despair, a hopelessness, meaninglessness that is really sometimes difficult to come out of. And when I'm talking about this is kind of, you know, I took this from previous sessions we've done, and it's about acceptance. Like, this is the situation we're in. It, you know, for lack of a better word, well, it's not a fun situation, I'll put it that way. And you know, we're climbing this mountain, and you can name the mountain whatever you want: Mount COVID, or Mount having a child with special needs or autism, or climbing Mount COVID with a child with special needs, however you want to use it as. But it's about letting go of that boulder, of all the blame, shame, and kind of wanting things to be different, and being able to climb the mountain free of that burden, so you can acknowledge some of the positive things that are happening, and so you can more easily get to the top of the mountain. And that involves the self-care we talked about, how we respond to situations, the self-compassion, and you know, using our values to guide your action. And those are all things we talked about the last couple times, but I think it's important to just revisit those. So again, the beliefs are really, really critical to, and it's not just the beliefs you have, it's fostering that belief within your family. And that can be can be challenging. But that's what that's what the attempt is to do, and it's trying to make meaningful and create a mindset where this is a situation we're in. We may not like it, and here's what we're going to do to get through the situation. So I wanted to, with that being said, just have a quick little discussion. This is one of three. Does anyone have any questions about what I've talked about in terms of the introduction of resilience, or the family beliefs and how that plays into dealing with adversity and forming a resilience for the family?
Hi. I just want to say that I think it was really helpful the way you framed it at the beginning when you had, because you started out with kind of the negative statistics that we've all read about the impact on the sibling and the impact on marriage. And it was helpful for you to kind of frame it and, acknowledge that, but also say that there are other studies and that's not necessarily the only narrative. So thank you. That was
Yeah.
really.
And I think that's kind of some of the, those studies are out there, and the challenges are very real. But I think it's again, acknowledging kind of that's kind of where the belief system comes in, and the mindset and kind of the frame, how we approach problems and look at them, I think is really critical. So I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad that was helpful. Has anyone seen has anyone encountered like a change in belief, or how have your beliefs, not religious beliefs, but how have your beliefs impacted how you've dealt with either the having a child with special needs or just dealing with COVID? Go ahead.
Yeah. I think at the beginning, when with my husband and I heard the diagnosis, it was very devastating. All the hopes that we had, it was hard to accept. We saw ourselves as a failure, for some reason or others, But now I think as time is passing, and we see how much she has grown and she's capable of doing, and we also have accepted ourselves that there is going to be limitations, but that she can do something in life. She can be part of the society and contribute on her own limitations, but she can be part of this big group of people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we now are more in peace with ourselves, I think. Well, it's every day is a struggle, but
Mm-hmm.
at least we're more in peace with that, with that fact. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're able to kind of get to that point. I think that's a very common experience for a lot of families that I've worked with. Where it's that initial kind of shock, and how did I get here? What do I do now? And then generally speaking, there's kind of the realization and that acceptance piece that you talked about that came in. So now with COVID, it's just trying to, and that's that process can take years and years and years and years and years. So now with the COVID, we're trying to really accelerate that process and just kind of be like, this is the way it is. You gotta deal with it at this point. And I know that's easier said than done. All right, so we'll move. Thank you for that. So we'll move on to the second piece. And we're talking about structural and organizational patterns. And flexibility is the first one, in conjunction with stability. Then we're going to talk about connectedness and mobilizing resources. You can see here with the cartoon, the keyword here is predictable, and we're looking with flexibility, with stability in particular, we're looking at trying to keep things as predictable as possible. But with the flexibility piece, acknowledging that changes have occurred and we kind of gotta roll with it. And so with flexibility, I think one of the key things is resetting expectations. And resetting expectations, like at this point, what are your expectations for your child? What are your expectations for your family? What are your expectations for yourself? In terms, and how have they changed because of COVID? Because circumstances have changed. It could be involve families working, parents working from home while trying to manage distance learning for their kid. Someone might have lost a job. Someone, there's so mmany different things that could have happened, and so it's important to reset the expectations based on what's happening. And with a child with autism, or a child that might have significant behaviors, it's to build resiliency. We're talking about to have a functioning family. Like, there needs to be I think a shifting of expectations, where if you're not putting as much pressure to do things and learn things and create that independence, all those really, really important things that pre-COVID I would be jumping up and down trying to get parents to do those things. At this point, like, can you take a step back and say what makes the most sense in terms of your child's participation and trying to learn new things? And it's about, I think really at this point, it's about stepping back, offering choices, allowing them to, you can pick your non-negotiables for things that they have to do, of course, but it's about picking your battles and allowing, kind of taking on, not a hands-off approach, but just understanding the situation, maybe the stress or frustration and anxiety that they're facing, the lack of support that you have, and tying that together and making it all work. And it's about adapting to change, possible change in roles. Different family members may be doing different things at this point based on changes that have happened within the family. And now with the kids home, all the child or multiple kids home all day, every day, more childcare is needed, and more roles are being taken on possibly by different people, or maybe more is expected of single parent or one specific caregiver. But it's about being able to accept those changes and try and manage those changes. And with that flexibility, we're still looking for the stability and the predictability and continuity when possible. We're talking about there's different leadership styles. So I have authoritative down. That's different than authoritarian. So authoritative is more about you're still the one in charge, but you're engaging others, and we're going to talk more about collaborative problem solving later. But it's trying to create a sense of confidence and engage others to work on goals, articulating a vision, and kind of being that mobilization person to get the family in gear. So it's with the stability, it's about establishing rules and standards with the appropriate expectations that I just mentioned, but trying not to have things be my way or the highway. There's I think sometimes you want to avoid kind of that rigidity of wanting things to be a certain way during times like that can be very difficult in normal times. And I think in times of I don't know, crises or just times of instability, it's important to that's where that flexibility comes in, and your child at some point is looking for a sense of continuity, a sense of dependability, and that's really where the stability comes in. With the overarching mindset with this is the bend but don't break. You see the palm trees again with the storm metaphor. The trees are bending in the wind, and that's okay, but they're not going to break. So we want to bend with the flexibility, but have the stability and not break with all of that. The next part is connectedness, and I think this is also critically important for the family, for family resilience, and you're trying to build a sense of cohesion with the family. When different different family members are going to be at different places, that's okay, but the goal is to try and bring everyone together, and that involves mutual support, collaboration, and getting back to the beliefs is that there's that commitment, that family commitment, to weather the storm and to get through this. And this connectedness can be built in so many different ways. I'm just going to name a couple. But basically, you're setting up ways for this connectedness, this cohesion to take place, because oftentimes in times of change and challenges, it's likely it's not going to happen on its own unless you make it happen. So this involves setting up activities. This involves like building rapport with family members. Maybe some relationships are frayed, or maybe it's just, if you have a child with distance learning and it's been really frustrating or difficult, just to, it's a constant battle to get them logged on and to do their classes and do their schoolwork. It's about, putting 10 minutes aside where you can just be with your kid, and, if it, younger child, just be there and play with your kid. Or if it's an older kid, it just might be having a set time where you check in with them and have a conversation with them. Like a daily 5-minute conversation. It can be family meals. There's so many different ways you can do it, but it's about creating those opportunities. So you're continuing to build that cohesion and that connectedness, that's really gonna keep the family kind of bonded together, so to speak, during these times of difficulty. So I know there's a lot of I think I think all of you are again asked to do more with less. But I think trying to schedule these times in to foster and build is really important, and it doesn't need to happen all at once. But I think it's something to you can start now and see where it goes. All right, next one is mobilizing resources. This is just really about building support, and I'm going to skip to the bottom line. It's seeking help. You do not need to struggle alone. Parents of youth with autism and special needs are often can be very, very isolated from family, from friends, and it can be really, really challenging. With COVID, it's hard to access support right now. I get that, behavioral support, mental health support, but the bottom line is when resiliency is going to be very hard to achieve when you're feeling overwhelmed and when you're feeling like you cannot regulate your emotions. That's going to impact your relationship with your child and other family members, and that's going to impact other relationships. I recommend to almost every family I work with, I don't know if I've said this before, that they that they seek mental health treatment because of what the challenges, like I've said, the challenges are there, and it's okay to need support. It's okay to not have all the answers, and it's okay to not be okay sometimes. So I think part of this is just mobilizing the resources, and if not just mental health treatment, but just support from extended family, friends. Build your network of support online. You're not the only ones going through this. Everyone here in this, here today is going through the same thing that you're going through. So it's about finding each other, reaching out to each other, and kind of putting yourself out there to seek help. That being said, second discussion time. Any questions on kind of that second piece of structural and just organization related to family resilience? You guys gonna make me ask questions again? All right, I'll do it. All right, what is one thing that you can, what's one thing you have done to promote connectedness within your own family? You might not have framed it as connectedness, but what was one thing you do to kind of promote that idea, or have done that you feel has worked for your family?
I'll say one thing we've done is especially over the summer, some projects that I had going around the house because we weren't going anywhere. I had help with them, and it may have been more efficient to not have help, but we did them together.
Nice. Yeah. And you ultimately, do you feel like that was kind of helpful for your relationship?
Yes, I think when they were done, there was a sense of accomplishment along the way, sometimes not so much, but when they were done, that was a good thing.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
Mike, there's also a chat.
Oh my goodness. I didn't have the chat open.
You're good.
Okay. I forgot.
So it's have a campfire in the backyard and ask everyone to come with us to walk the dog. Those are two strategies that they found to support.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So this is about adjusting the sails. It's not about recreating the wheel. It's about, the dog's got to be walked, so let's just do it together. But you might have a teenage son, you might have they might not want to spend hours and hours and hours in time with you. That's okay. But you can build that connectedness and build that time and to have that conversation, get them off the screen and walk the dog. I think that's a great idea. All right. Any other comments on that? Are you ready to move on? Okay, we're ready to move on. All right. So the third part of family resilience: communication and problem solving. 3 parts: clarity, open emotional expression, and collaborative problem solving. And I think the clarity piece is pretty simple. And well, I was going to say simple and basic, but sometimes I guess it can be challenging depending on, it's about sharing of information. Without there, I think the challenging part becomes knowing exactly what to share and when to share it. But in terms of, there's definitely a tendency to avoid painful conversations and topics. I think that's natural for most people and most families. Maybe not all, but the sharing of information is really critical. Without that information or a sense of what's happening or what's coming next, there's going to be a sense of anxiety, and that's going to, it's unlikely that a child's going to come out and say, oh, I'm feeling anxious because I don't know what's going on. It's going to manifest itself in different ways and different behaviors that are probably going to be maladaptive and not the healthiest. So it's about letting them know what's going on. It's about it's for you as a caregiver and a parent. It's about not having to know the answers to all the questions. And right now there's a lot more unknowns than knowns. So you can provide reassurance without having all the answers. If you have a child expressing worry, fear, anxiety about what's happening, it's acknowledging their fear and worries, and you can let them know this, I'm not sure when this is going to end, but here's what we're going to do in the meantime. We're still going to have our we're still going to have our daily schedule. And this is where the connectedness and some of the routines come in. With the stability, we're still going to be doing this every day, and we're still going to have this. And we know you're able to. We're still going to be wearing masks if we go outside or go to the store. And these are the safety precautions that we can take to be as safe as possible. So again, I think sometimes there's the tendency to avoid topics or just to pretend we know everything that's going on, when oftentimes I think our can kind of read through that and see it for what it is. So I think it's, you might not want to say everything in terms of everything that's going on with COVID, but I think providing the basic level of information is important. Open emotional expression. This can be a tricky one, but it's just in the basic sense, allowing family members to share how they feel. Like I said, there's a lot of anxiety, frustration, uncertainty, fear. I think to some level in everyone, especially with what's going on. So that's with us, that's with our children. I think it's with pretty much almost all family members. So it's important for them to be able, for family members, I'm talking about children, I'm talking about adults as well, not just children. I'm talking about partners, spouses, if you older children, adult age children, to be able to share how they're feeling if they're not doing well, to let you know that for you to have someone you can talk to about these things. And again, it's about talked a little bit about this. It's okay for you all not to be feeling good. You can be vulnerable, and to an extent, and you can be vulnerable and share to an extent. You're gonna. It depends on how old your children are, of course, but you can be vulnerable, model that for them, and then model those coping skills on when you're struggling. And critically, it's being aware of intense emotions and your accumulation of stress. Being really self-aware of how you're feeling, because your emotional regulation is going to directly and indirectly impact the emotional regulation of your child and other family members. If you cannot regulate your emotions because you're just under so much stress, then it's going to impact your parenting. It's going to impact with the special needs child, with the other siblings, with your spouse or partner, whoever. And that's just going to have negative impacts. So really pay attention to your stress level and to your tense emotions. Know when to walk away, know when to pick your battles, and know when you need that support. Lastly, use humor. This can be a hard one when we're feeling so down or struggling or don't know how kind of we're going to get through the day, but use that humor. It really kind of breaks the ice, and is really I think a helpful way to get through the difficult emotions that we're all experiencing right now. Lastly, we have collaborative problem solving. So this kind of goes into the authoritative leadership I talked about earlier with the stability and flexibility. So it's about involving family members in the problem solving. So the problem solving process. As parents, of course, you guys are the ones in charge, and you're setting the rules, but it's allowing everyone in the family to have a say in the decisions, in some decisions that are made, and it's about letting them. You're trying to create a sense of fairness, and that's really important as you're navigating through this situation and the decisions you're making. Of course, the children are not going to agree with every decision you made, but you do want to create a sense of fairness, because that's going to affect the cohesiveness and connectedness that's so important for the resilience of the family. It's about being creative, and that's part of also flexibility, and trying to think through different solutions to different problems, doing things differently. And then also setting goals and priorities. You know, you're kind of steering the ship. What do you want to focus on? What is the priority right now for your family? I love the comment a parent made last month where she was just basically like, I want my family to be able to get through this where we don't kill each other. Like that was it. And that was like, that kind of, you know, for me, it kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of like, how are you going to get through the next few months? Like what are you going to prioritize? And that's important for you to kind of, I think for you to consider, and then involving family members in that process, and developing kind of that shared vision. So the last piece is with problem solving, it's learning from failure. You don't have to do everything perfectly to build resiliency. In fact, to build resiliency, you're likely going to have to fail. So it's not about just learning from failure. It's expecting some failure. It's expecting yourself to not perform 100% the best, handle every situation the best way possible. And then that's where the self-compassion comes in. How do you treat yourself? How do you deal with those situations where you feel like you didn't maybe necessarily live up to how your values or how you wanted to handle a situation? And that's extremely critical now when we have high stress levels, and there are going to be times where the stress gets the best of us. It's definitely happened to me within my family, where I've been stressed and dealing with some behavior of my own little ones, where I kind of did not, let's just say I didn't handle it very, very well. But self-compassion helps us get back to it helps us get back to the point where we can start solving our problems. And that's kind of the aspect of self-care, and being able to, it puts us in a situation to collaboratively problem solve. So that's why it's there on this slide, and I think it's so so important. So that's problem solving. Any comments, questions about the problem solving, open emotional expression, clarity? All right. What do you guys see as some barriers to open emotional expression? Why might that be challenging for you, or a family member, or family in general?
If no one's going to talk, I'll just say I think one barrier for that is because there's already so much stress. You don't want to just add to one more thing that's going to up the overall tension level, even though leaving it undealt with is also adding tension. But the acute chaos that can ensue from being a little more open is maybe seen as worse.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's kind of double-edged sword a little bit, and so sometimes you're saying you feel like some things are better left unsaid. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's definitely, that's definitely valid and appropriate at times. I think I guess I would just say, if that's happening over and over and over and over and over again, that might be where you you might run into an issue where the emotional sharing is never happening. But I think there are definitely times, this isn't about there are situations where you might want to kind of pull back and just be like, I'm going to deal with this another time. I think that's no, I think that's actually important and a smart way to handle things. You don't always want things to spill out in the open. So that's actually a really good point. In the chat, we have, how do you handle two types of parents? One who is glass half full and one who tends to expect crises. Well, I think the one who tends to expect crises is right at this point. So there you go. That's it. No. I mean, I think, I think that that's one of the challenges in all this. I think is when you have co-parenting two parents. I think it's trying to there's definitely a collaboration that needs to take place, and there needs to be, that's where the open communication and how you're going to handle situations, and there's going to be disagreements, and there's going to be you're not always going to see eye to eye, especially when you have maybe an eternal optimist and an eternal pessimist. But I think that's again you kind of doing some of the things I talked about. It's what are your priorities? What goals are you setting? And trying to have a conversation without being critical or judgmental. It's about accepting the differences, being okay. One person's not right, one person's not wrong. We have just different viewpoints, and it's finding the middle ground. And trying to the consistency comes in with we talked about the clarity, and expressing kind of I think a unified front within the family, and trying to work out your differences. I know I think that can be easier said than done, but that's kind of the process, so to speak, in terms of trying to address that.
Mike, I'm going to jump in for two things. One, I think also with that, going back to your slide about the beliefs and that being the foundation, and kind of going back to the values might help with some of that, coming back to those shared values as a family and how to navigate that. Mm-hmm. The other bit I wanted to say was, I think this is just my perception, not necessarily the truth for everybody, but I think sometimes we live in a world where we feel like we need to put on a front that everything's okay. And so it's the society values right now are that you do pretend that everything is okay, and you don't express and share your vulnerabilities and your emotional feelings. And I also think some people feel that sharing how they're feeling makes them look weak. But it really isn't. I think it's so important to see it. It's actually a strength to be able to share your vulnerabilities and how you're feeling. And again, it's such a good model for our kids in terms of how that we do experience different emotions. We're not always perfect, but also to then model the coping strategies that you talked about.
Yep. And I think that, yeah, Jess, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's even harder, talking about, kind of society and norms and values. It's even harder from, for males, you kind of have that masculine stereotype where you're expected to not show emotion. You're expected to be, you have that kind of you be that strong male figure. And so that creates, I think, situations where it actually decrease, when you're unable to share how you're feeling and what's going on, it leads to less of that cohesion and connectedness that we're talking about. But that's definitely a barrier, and a really something can be difficult to kind of counter. All right, so I wanted to the next part to kind of wrap up the presentation is to talk a little bit about just subsystems, and more so as the family system as a unit. So we have the family system, we have family subsystems, and those are just relationships within the family. You have the parent-child subsystem, You have the marital subsystem if there are, two parents involved. You have the sibling subsystem, and the co-parenting subsystem. And again, the important thing for this slide is to acknowledge that what's happening in one subsystem is going to impact what's happening in the other subsystem. So if you're, in the marital subsystem, if there are conflicts in the marital subsystem, and ultimately there are always going to be some conflicts, but if that's, if there's significant conflict and difficulty there, that's going to spill over to how the parent and child subsystem are operating. And if there's difficulty in the sibling subsystem, that's going to, and vice versa. Like everything impacts one another is the main point to that. And, as if there's a one parent and child grow getting extremely close, it can affect the other in the marital subsystem or another family member from possibly disengaging. So it's just being aware of these different subsystems and kind of how they play off one another and how they can impact one another. And I wanted to talk about siblings a little bit because I feel like that is something that is not always talked about, but I think it's something parents are kind of thinking about a lot. And it's really challenging when you have a child with special needs and then other children. There's a lot of I think some guilt involved, maybe a little bit of shame and self-blame because they feel like they're not able to devote as much time to the sibling because the child with special needs, their needs are so intensive. So just some kind of considerations and some suggestions to kind of to deal with that a little bit, because I think that's really, really common for a lot of families. And and the sibling, talked about at the beginning of the presentation, the sibling is impacted by having a special needs sibling, and some of those things can be negative, but a lot of them can be positive. And the research has shown that generally speaking, I guess there's a lot of positive aspects, but there can be some resentment and difficulties involved with that for the sibling. So I think it's important, getting back to the connectedness piece, allocating time in the day just for the sibling. The special needs child takes up a lot of your time. That's understandable, but quality is more important than quantity. And if you can spend, however it is, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long, you're able to devote, that's really important. And maybe it's, you have your special event. We talked about creating time within the family for family activities. You create that time for just a parent and a sibling. Allowing sibling opportunities to process feelings towards sibling, and how sibling's life is impacted by the child with special needs. It's likely that those feelings are mixed, and there's likely going to be some positives, and there's also going to be some negatives, just like any other sibling relationship. And some children with autism, their siblings report actually better relationships with their sibling than typical neurotypical siblings. But it's important for them to share their feelings, just like we talked about with the emotional sharing. Giving siblings age-appropriate household responsibilities. This is a big one. A lot of times siblings are asked to do too much within the household. It's understandable, but that can create issues where the sibling is performing roles that they're not developmentally appropriate for the sibling. During COVID, they might be even asked to do any more. So just try and check in and make sure that have an open conversation with the child about it. How do they feel about it? Let them pick and choose what they can give them choices, not whether they do it or not, but choices of what they're going to do. And then the last two, giving them the language to explain explain to their friends, kind of the condition of the child with special needs, and facilitating also facilitating interactions between the sibling and child with special needs. So putting it all together, you know, we're really focus on relationships. That is how you build resiliency within your family. Building more cohesive, stronger relationships within your family, different family members, different subsystems, and that's going to enhance family functioning as a whole. Start small. Start really small. This is not, again, you're adjusting the sails. We're not, you know, to get through the storm. You're not recreating the wheel. Think about what makes sense for you and your family. Utilize the strengths that are already present. You have strengths. Your family has strengths. You've accomplished a lot in, you know, throughout just having a child with special needs, and then getting through COVID with a child with special needs. So use your own pathway. So you know, two quotes I thought that were pretty relevant is, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." I think that's from Maya Angelou, really speaks to how our beliefs and how we approach adversity, and what, COVID's, I think, going to change all of us to some degree, but it doesn't need to define who we are as individuals or as families. And then a hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. So I think you guys fit that hero, fit that hero mold. Like, you guys are doing extraordinary things in an extraordinary situation. So it's important to step back and remember this is not normal, and you guys have accomplished so much and can continue to accomplish so much in this time of adversity. So I'm gonna open it up one last time, just following your guys' feedback with the open discussion. We want to make sure you guys are able to kind of process and talk about things that are important to you. So do you guys have any questions at all, or any points or things you want me to clarify, or questions that apply to your family? Anything at all related to the whole presentation tonight? All right, I won't make you guys talk anymore. So I always like to end with a challenge to see what you guys can kind of implement at home. So select one process that promotes family resilience and implement a component within a week's time. See what you can do. Pick something that is manageable, and see what you can do within the next week. So that's my challenge to you. I want to give a shout out to Eve Mueller, who helped with the research for this presentation, and also big thank you to Jess for also helping with the presentation. So thank you. Lots of references. If you guys want some follow-up reading, let me know.